on to mindfulness, and we attended a GTD session together. I thought of GTD as the real practical way to mindfulness, because in GTD, you take out stuff from your mind and you actually park it somewhere so that you access the stuff when you need the stuff.
Okay.
I thought that was, I discovered GTD very late in my life. I wish I discovered it when I was 10 years old. And that's, for me, been like the science of mindfulness, because in plenty of mindfulness sessions, mindfulness is treated as a verb, not as a journey, not as a destination. You have some mindfulness trainers who say, okay, now come in and now for the next 5 minutes, don't think about anything, or think about your breath, or take a resin and put it on your tongue and now think about the weight of the resin and the texture of the resin. All that may be slightly useful. At the same time, how do you know what that person is really thinking about? He might still be thinking about thousands of problems that he has when he's in the class. And let's assume he is a superhuman and he manages to not think about anything but the resin in his class, on his tongue. But what happens after 5 minutes? He's back in the big bad world. So, so you can either talk about your experience with GTD or anything else that you want to talk about mindfulness, which is more aligned to what you mentioned in the book.
Yeah. So I think there are two ways to kind of look at this. And I've seen that one is the way of presence, which is just being fully present in the moment to be able to deal with anything that experience as well as anything that comes in that moment with the right engagement. Okay. Now, obviously, that is an extremely difficult state to achieve for a normal person in today's world because of, there's so many things which are just pulling at our attention. And it's simple. It's a very simple thing. Just presence is good enough. We don't need anything else, but that presence, cultivating that presence is the challenge. Now, for cultivating the presence, there are different approaches, obviously, and you don't need an approach if you're really kind of good at it, where you're able to say, okay, I can be completely present and think. The problem is that we are not able to be present because of what's going on in the head. Okay, so and there are different ways to cultivate that presence. One of the ways is to kind of follow what David Allen is saying, and some of it I've kind of brought into the book, which is very clearly just empty the mind, which is whatever is going on in your head, put it down on paper. That itself is a big relief. Just knowing what's happening in your head and writing it down is a big relief. But obviously, if you don't do anything with what you've written over there, then some of them remain as open loops and will come back. So you need to organize what is happening in the right way. If you organize it, it obviously takes away a lot of pressure of what you want to do.
Okay.
Right? So GTD is a fantastic way to be able to organize what's going on in your head from the perspective of taking action. But what I also see is that a lot of people have not only to-dos, but they have concerns, they have fear, they have worries, they have emotions, they're, a whole bunch of things which are, kind of also distracting them, not because they have to do anything, but just because they like to worry. Okay. And that is their default state. And which is where, if you're able to practice a few things, which is where, some of these things like your breath work or a meditation or, kind of things like that gives you, it's like a small muscle, which teaches you that if you use this muscle, it is helpful. But the whole point is the application has to happen more consistently. If just 10-15 minutes of breathing will not help. But the whole point is if you learn it as something that you can apply at different points in your day and really use it. And that's the third part, which is I'm saying that, while both these are slightly more demanding kind of thing, third thing is a more tactical thing, which is just figure out times and eliminate certain things. And which is what I'm saying, eliminate, noise around you, declutter. Just, shut your things which are kind of thing. Don't watch TV when you're eating. Okay.
And sometimes you need to eliminate people as well. as in get away from them, not eliminate them.
To the extent that you can, reduce unwanted things which will distract you. So when you do that, then it allows you to be slightly more present automatically. Once that is there, then bring that focus into what you are doing. Just eating, for example, it's like a incredible experience, right? But nobody remembers what the taste of the food is after the third bite. Okay, even if it's the most fantastic food that they're eating, it's only 3 bites. After third bite, it's autopilot. That's like, okay, whatever it is, it goes on. Your head is somewhere else. You're talking, you're watching something, which is so, it's so concerning, right? Because it's the most pleasurable activity that you are engaging in and perhaps spoiling your health for it. But then after 3 bites, the pleasure is gone and you don't even realize it, right? As a thing. And that's happening with all activities as a thing. So the simple thing is also to just bring in activity, even at least to the activities that you enjoy. Okay. And where there you can take cues. For example, like for eating, first eliminate your noise and then set an intention to just say, to the extent that I'm going to be, I will, kind of engage with this food better. One of the things that I do is, like, for example, for meetings, I'm sitting in front of my computer and in my cabin, if I have to meet somebody, I realize that if I just turn my chair and talk to them, which is possible, my attention keeps going back to the computer. And then I said, okay, this is, not good. So I shifted from there, went to a different place, put my mobile behind me. The 2 big, distractors, mobile and computers, are not in my thing. Then it allows me the opportunity to be more thing.
Right.
What still happens is that if the conversation is not really, very challenging or exciting, your mind drifts off. But the whole point is to catch it, bring it back, catch it, bring it back, and say, because that's what I want to be. That I don't want to be lost in things, because I want to give that person that full attention and I want to be present in that conversation. When that intent is there, you catch it and you bring it back, and whatever, technique that really helps is possibly useful for you. So for me, I think the first thing is that we need to understand the intent, that it's extremely critical to be mindful, to have the first point which I mentioned, which is that if you want to really experience life fully, without being mindful, nothing, even the pleasures are not pleasurable.
Yeah.
First, pleasure itself is not happiness in the long term. It is a momentary gratification. But even that, if you're not able to, kind of enjoy fully because of our distractedness, then, it's a complete waste of whole our existence itself. So we need to practice this. You need to practice, because your mind likes to, and see that with distraction, there's a lot of science around it. The mind is a distracted mind. It's a monkey mind. Sorry, my power went off. I'll be back in a moment. I'll kind of continue speaking. And
okay.
The whole point is with the mind, it does not want to think. It wants you to be distracted, because in that distracted state, the energy that it needs to use is very less. But if you give the mind a problem and ask to solve it, or you have to do something, then it needs to expend a lot more energy doing it. So it prefers to be distracted, because in that state, it's happy. There is no expending of energy and it likes it that way. So it's a natural tendency, like, how we are oriented. But when we want to be able to be mindful, then we have to reduce the distraction with effort. What is the effort that you will put is a decision that you can take. But if you don't put that effort, your experience of life diminishes. So what effort you will put, that choice is up to you, which is, will you use GTD? Will you use, kind of more tactical practices? Will you use, breathing as a crutch to kind of keep coming back? Will you make it a habit by setting certain cues? When I enter a room, then that's a cue for me to say, okay, that I need to take a few deep breaths so that I'm able to park the kind of noise in my head. When I'm, in a meeting, I keep my phone away so that it doesn't, kind of distract me from what I would like to do in that meeting. So you can build in habits and cues which can kind of tactically help you. The choice of what you do is up to you, but there is no choice in not being mindful. That will diminish your, experience of life. And because even if you go to a beach, for example, okay, people like adventure, you want to have experiences, but you go to a beach, and then in the beach is a nice picture somewhere in WhatsApp is going on. There's a person in the beach thinking of a computer, because at the beach he's sitting and thinking, okay, what he has to do at work. So what is the point of the vacation? There's no point, because you went all the way, you spent all that money, and then within a few hours you are thinking about work.
Yeah.
And that is the truth of it. It's not even an imagined, faraway thing. That is the truth of it. And really, that's why mindfulness is a must. How you would like to get to it, perhaps, is a choice. GTD certainly is a good way because it has a very clear methodology, but I've also found that it's a slightly, kind of difficult methodology because it needs discipline.
Mm-hmm.
For people who are, kind of don't have the discipline, then you kind of lose the whole track. So I'm not, propagating a particular methodology, but I'm propagating mindfulness as a critical element of happiness.
Great. I think one of the major points from here is that you should know your enemy. And that's going to really help a person be more mindful. And there are some people who just don't get it. They think that not being mindful, especially in a social situation, they're right. It's like, I am who I am. I'm too cute and take me for what I am. That kind of attitude. So there was this acquaintance of mine, a lady whom I had known for 20 years. We were at a restaurant and she kept looking at a mobile and she kept on sending messages to someone. And after a few seconds, I realized that they were not even important messages. It's not like somebody was on a pacemaker or something, or on an ICU or something. I said, what is the point of meeting me then if you're going to be on the phone? We might as well keep in touch on the phone then. What's the point of meeting?
Yeah.
So maybe I got to do the authenticity probing exercise. Maybe I came across as too harsh, but the intention was to show that my feelings were hurt. So
see, but people don't intend to hurt you. They just gotten so used to it that it happens involuntarily. That you think like, and in a way, it has a scientific thing, because when that message comes to you in some way or form, it means you're important, because somebody has taken the time to send you a message, right? And so that releases a bit of dopamine in your system, saying that, oh, okay, so I feel good. And so it's like a smaller, lighter version of a cigarette, right? Because when you get that message, oh, okay, I'm important. And when you respond to that message, oh, okay, I've kind of propagated that importance more. So there is a reason as to why people do it, but the fact is that it is unimportant. We all know it, and people just don't have the presence to kind of discern, saying that, hey, I am over here. This is something that which is why I recommend the tactical thing, which is like just consciously put the thing away. Put it away. Your, the kryptonite, the modern day kryptonite is your mobile phone. Okay, it is more than us. I think I'm worried about the kids because it is doing extreme damage to them.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable amount of damage, just going to, cause a lot of issues. And and it's too early. We don't realize it, but I can see the symptoms already, that we are just making them into far dumber people than, what they ought to be by giving that instrument is smart, but we are making ourselves dumb. So it's a strange thing. And just another point on that whole thing, one of the mindfulness checks that you can do is that when you meet somebody and they tell you the name, okay, do you remember that name? Simple thing. And I used to struggle with it for a long time, which is at that point that they're telling you, you're not paying attention. So it's a simple check. And these are the challenges, when I'm recommending actions, these are the kind of challenges I'm telling in the book, saying that pick these small challenges. Challenges, next time you meet a person, you should remember that person's name when you come back home. Okay. And then build that muscle. Next time you meet 5 people, remember all 5 people's names. 10 people, you remember all 10 people's names. Because then that forces you, because you have a challenge, it forces you to say, oh, I'm supposed to remember. So I'm going to clear that distraction in my head and then be present over there. But as you realize this, then you can apply this ability to be present in other situations. So that's how you take that learning from this, oh, I wasn't present, but because of the challenge, I learned to be present. And now because I've learned it, I know I can apply this learning somewhere else if I want to. And then you extend that, pull that whole muscle across to things which are more important. And as you keep pulling it, then it becomes a larger part of your own existence, and you are in a much more present state than before.
Right. And this is very critical to me, to be mindful. And if I am, in a business situation, you can't help it. If the other person is not mindful, you can't stop talking to that person. But in a social situation, one can send out clear signals that if you're not mindful to me in a social situation, then why are we meeting in the first place? Because offline meetings are more expensive and you might as well keep in touch on the phone.
Yeah.
So this was a really important thing for me. And the end of that story was that we don't speak to each other anymore in spite of knowing each other for 20 years. And I am happy for it, because if I'm not even getting the respect of undivided attention when I'm having an offline social conversation, then what's the quality of my life?
Yeah.
This is social interactions are absolutely critical for happiness.
But the whole point is that, if they have become an addict, okay, you don't expect a normal, behavior from somebody who's addicted to something, because you give them that thing, right? The whole point is to make them realize the addiction and get out of it. That would be my, take on that, because it's an addiction. People don't, if she meant to offend, that's different. But most times I realize that people are just like that. They don't realize. They're just caught in it because there's an auto reaction. It's just like that thing I was saying. You see some distraction, the mind automatically goes to it because it wants that dopamine hit. And then you don't realize that somebody is there who's come and is waiting for you because you've been hijacked. Now, if somebody has been hijacked and they're not, kind of present, I think they need, support to realize that and really get out of that as a thing. Because sometimes, and that is the difficult part. And I'm, especially with, kids, it's a very, very difficult part, because then, their whole childhood is meant to be a learning experience, right? And that learning experience can be very diminished and if you see today, right, so many kids are just on video games, and see, in some ways it is okay. It elevates certain skills and all that, but it just degrades your experience of life so tremendously that it will have consequences.
So plenty of people in a social situation are not open to any suggestions or any improvement. So I've just let those people go, and I'm very happy. My life is much richer.
That's a good happiness habit. Okay, because we need to, and I think one thing we need to realize is that we need to set ourselves up for happiness. And setting ourselves up means to have, let go of those people who you don't need, because some people just can't learn. And even, at times, if I go to parties and all that, after a point, I can't talk. And people think I'm a little antisocial because they're all cribbing and complaining and comparing certain things which don't interest me. But at the same time, if they're talking about life and, like we're having this conversation, and I can go on, okay, as a thing. But if it's about, certain things, I just switch off, because if you allow it to enter and you engage with it, you again become part of it. With great difficulty, I've tried to, kind of step out of that zone. I don't want to go back into that zone. So I limit some of those things to the extent possible. Sometimes you can't, but and it's a good strategy. Actually, they say that the people who are around you influence you a lot. in terms of your thought and your future and things like that. So keeping it to a group which is, which can inspire you is very important.
Yeah. A couple of more subjects. Again, the theme of my questions is a bit similar to the last 2 or 3 questions. Is again, gratitude is something that you mentioned, but
yeah,
again, yeah, so that's a bit like positive thinking. In that, if you're grateful about everything, then you're going to get flabby and lazy and die soon. So you got to create a dissatisfaction sometimes when you're too cozy. So